Yes, yesterday's ruling of the Supreme Court is critical. It could even be historic because what it does is that it defangs the SIR. What it does is that it takes away the potential of massive disenfranchisement from SIR. So, yes, in that sense, it is critical.
A naked man has little to no influence on society. In clothes like this, you step out and you know that you're going to turn heads. You know that you're going to create an impression of a person who cares deeply about the way they look and has a finer eye for detail. And, that seems to be the Bombay Shirt Company way. What I really love about these clothes, and I really mean this, is this looks like a man has walked into the room. I like that. It's nice.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Yesterday, the Supreme Court clearly and unambiguously ordered that Aadhaar cards must be accepted for the special intensive revision of the electoral rolls presently underway in Bihar. It's something opposition politicians and activists have been demanding for weeks. So today we ask, how important a decision is this? What will it mean for the electors of Bihar? And how does it change the way critics view the special intensive revision? My guest is the National Convenor of the Bharat Jodo Abhiyan and one of the key petitioners in this matter, Yogendra Yadav. Yogendra Yadav, on Monday, the Supreme Court ordered that Aadhaar must be accepted as the 12th document in the special intensive revision exercise presently underway in Bihar. This is precisely what you and other petitioners were asking for. Earlier, there was a certain ambiguity in the Supreme Court's ruling. Am I right in saying now it's unambiguous and crystal clear that the Election Commission has to accept Aadhaar as the 12th document?
Thanks, Karan. Yes, yesterday's ruling of the Supreme Court is critical. It could even be historic because what it does is that it defangs the SIR. What it does is that it takes away the potential of massive disenfranchisement from SIR. So yes, in that sense, it is critical. It is sad that the Supreme Court had to make a fourth order in this particular instance because the court on 3 previous occasions has mentioned it. But the Election Commission took advantage of ambiguities in each order and on the ground refused to implement it. So yesterday, the Supreme Court had to say in unambiguous terms that it would be the 12th document accepted under the SIR process. So yes, it should be decisive unless there is a twist in the tail.
On Monday, the Supreme Court also ordered the Election Commission to issue instructions on the 9th. But according to live law, when Gopal Shankar Narayanan asked the Election Commission to give publicity to this order, Rakesh Dwivedi, the Election Commission's lawyer, was clearly not willing to do so. Not required, he said, according to live law. What does that tell you about the Election Commission's attitude to this matter?
Right from the beginning, Karan, this has been the case. Election Commission has dragged its feet, has adopted a double speak. So when on the 10th of July, when the case came up first before the vacation bench. The vacation bench had offered, as you would recall, a very, very clear suggestion. I just read out to you what they had said. They had said that it would be in the interest of justice if election commission will also consider these documents, which is Aadhaar card, Epic card, and also the ration card. The election commission filed a counter affidavit in which it did not say that it will not accept Aadhaar card, but said, no, we are in the process of considering it. We of course take it into account and so on and so forth, but it is not a proof of citizenship. This red herring was introduced during the counter affidavit. Then the election commission made a second order in the case of 65 lakh people who were omitted to say, again very clearly, that these aggrieved persons may approach with a copy of their Aadhaar card. We were able to demonstrate to the court yesterday that actually even these people are being denied the inclusion of name based on Aadhaar card. So on the ground, the election commission was dragging its feet. And in yesterday's proceedings, if you would notice, the election commission's counsel made every possible effort to ensure that the word 12th document is not used by the court. And when the court finally used it, and Gopal Shankar Narayan said that, it should be publicized. Now, it stands to reason. Every order of the court, which the election commission is required to implement when it concerns issues of public concern, it should, of course, be publicized. It should be publicized because lakhs of people are still in the process of filing their claims. Lakhs of people have been issued notices. They are in the process of responding to those notices. They need to know that the Supreme Court has made this order. And in the court itself, the Election Commission's counsel said, no, we don't need to do that. I mean, this is an extraordinary statement to make in the apex court by a constitutional authority that we need not publicize the orders of the Supreme Court, which in a sense suggests that even after the orders are passed, the Election Commission might try to drag its feet, might try to come up with some mechanism through which it wishes to deny, might play still, some trick, might wish to use some clause in the judgment in order to deny it. So that apprehension still remains in my mind.
But the big point you're making is that not just yesterday, but for weeks before yesterday, the Election Commission has been dragging its feet in implementing an order passed by the Supreme Court 3, possibly 4 times. In other words, to use that marvelous English phrase, it's been playing ducks and drakes. It hasn't been straightforward and upfront.
Or to use a legal language, it is a contempt of the court, which is what we claimed yesterday. And not just ordinary things, Karan. We actually brought a document to the attention of the court yesterday. This is from District Sitamarhi in Bihar, where some BLOs were accepting Aadhaar and were uploading the claims of these 65 lakh people on the basis of Aadhaar, exactly as the Supreme Court had ordered. And these 5 BLOs were issued a show cause notice by the Election Commission, saying, why are you using a document outside the 11 prescribed documents when there was a Supreme Court order to the effect that they could use these 11 or Aadhaar? There was a show cause notice to them. We brought that. There were 24 affidavits given by affected persons to say, I approached with Aadhaar card, then it was denied. And there were 2 BLOs who themselves gave in writing to say, no, I have been instructed not to accept Aadhaar as a standalone document. Sorry, I will not accept your things. We presented the court with this much evidence. And that is when court took a serious view of the matter. So yes, the Election Commission has been trying to drag its feet and therefore gives rise to the suspicion that there is more to this than the simple question of Aadhaar card.
What do you suspect that more could be?
A design for disenfranchisement. Karan, let's get the basics right. The question of document is not a new question. Yes, before SIR, all the individuals, all the persons concerned who need to be on the voters list were never asked to give documents. But Those who would specially apply, if I were to tomorrow shift to Ahmedabad, I would need to file a Form 6 or Form 7, and then I would need to give documents. So Election Commission has in the past specified documents that it would accept for being on the voters list. There were 12 documents in all that the Election Commission used to accept. What is extraordinary about SIR is that out of those 12 documents, Election Commission, for the purposes of SIR, those 12 documents that the Election Commission would accept in the past and accepts even today in Delhi, Rajasthan, everywhere outside Bihar, out of those 12 and these 11 documents which are being accepted in SIR, there is almost very little match. Only 3 of those previous 12 documents are now accepted in SIR. And suddenly the Election Commission comes up with 8 new documents with very low evidentiary value and very low saturation or very low reach among the people. And it dropped 4 or 5 very critical documents which have high saturation and fairly decent evidentiary value, top of which is, of course, Aadhaar. And that is why Aadhaar became such an important thing. And that is why the entire debate about SIR and the question of universality of the adult franchise came to be centered around Aadhaar, because Aadhaar is one document which has very high evidentiary value. It proves 4 out of the 5 things that need to be proven. Aadhaar proves 4 things. It proves your facial identity. It proves your age, your parentage, and your address. In other words, very high evidentiary value. And Aadhaar has a near 100% coverage. Press media reports would tell you 88% in Bihar, but that's because they take children into account. If you take only the adult population of Bihar in account, then it's nearly 100%. Now just look at it. Election Commission wants to take the following documents with virtually very low negligible coverage. For example, land house allotment certificate, which is 1.2%. They want forest rights certificate with virtually zero coverage in Bihar. They insist on bank LIC IDs, which were issued before 1987, virtually zero coverage and very low evidentiary values. They want that, but they do not want Aadhaar card with high evidentiary value and very high saturation. So hence my suspicion, the question that you asked, why is it that I suspect something? My suspicion is that somehow someone, it could be in the Election Commission or it could be above the Election Commission, does not want something which provides universal adult franchise to be there. They want a handle or a tool to restrict franchise. And the moment Aadhaar is accepted, that universality is ensured, and someone just doesn't want that.
Now, yesterday, Justice Surya Kant verbally ordered the Election Commission to put this order on their websites. Alongside newspaper and television coverage of this matter, is this sufficient to make the people of Bihar fully aware of the new order that Aadhaar will now be the 12th document?
We should hope that political parties will carry that message out. We should hope that the media might carry it out, but that does not take away from the statutory responsibility of a constitutional institution. Please remember that whenever Election Commission has on its own made any changes to SIR, they have given front page advertisements in newspapers, not only in Bihar, but even in Delhi, all over the country. But when the Supreme Court orders something, the Election Commission doesn't think that they should do something like this. Just makes you suspect that it is one more case of dragging. And it also makes you suspect whether in reality, oral instructions might be different from the written orders of the Supreme Court.
You said that 2 or 3 times in this interview. You do believe there could be what you called earlier a twist in the tail. You do believe that even now there could be room for the Election Commission to somehow spin what the Supreme Court has said in a different way to what the Supreme Court intended. You do believe that? Or you fear that?
That's an apprehension. That's an apprehension. And I'll give you the ground for that apprehension. We have discussed in the course of this interview the Election Commission's intent, Election Commission's behavior, which gives rise to very serious suspicions. Will the Election Commission want to play this around? Because there is one thing in the Supreme Court order which I fear the Election Commission might wish to use illegitimately to once again pursue its anti-Aadhaar agenda. Now, please remember, there is a difference between the order that was dictated in the court and the order as was uploaded last evening. I'm not saying this is illegal. This does happen often. The judges are perfectly entitled to doing so, because in speaking and in writing, there is some difference. But in this one, there is one difference that is worth noting. Earlier, the order said, Aadhaar card shall be treated as a 12th document by the authorities, full stop. And it said, however, authorities shall be entitled to verifying the authenticity and genuineness of the Aadhaar card itself. Perfect. The written order says that Aadhaar card for this purpose shall be treated as a 12th document. Clearly, what the court implies is for purposes of SIR in Bihar. But would the Election Commission use it to establish identity only and for no other purpose? More importantly, in the last line, the earlier thing, which simply said Election Commission can verify the authenticity of Aadhaar card, has the following addition. Authenticity and genuinity of Aadhaar card, like any other enumerated document, by seeking further proof document. Now, that worries me. It worries me because there's only one way of authenticating an Aadhaar card, especially by a government authority. There is the original database of Aadhaar card. So if Yogendra Yadav comes with an Aadhaar card, all that the government has to do is to punch that number and say that this person's face is the same as the person standing in front of me. And the number that he supplied is actually the number for Yogendra Yadav. That's all they need to do. Why ask for additional documents? The judges may have done it without full knowledge of how Aadhaar card is authenticated. But will the Election Commission wish to exploit this possibility? We don't know. You could say it's an apprehension, but because of the conduct of Election Commission in the last 2 months, every apprehension has to be taken seriously.
We'll have to keep our fingers firmly and tightly crossed that your apprehension doesn't become reality, that it is only based upon the track record of behavior that the Election Commission has established over the last few weeks. Let's move beyond the order to the people it will affect. In previous interviews, you've told me that this will be a lifeline for those out of the 7.24 crore who have only been able to provide Aadhaar cards as documentation. Am I right in saying they will now be retained on the electoral list and not dropped, not deleted?
Absolutely. On that, the order leaves no scope for doubt that it is unambiguously an order that applies not only to the 65 lakh people who were excluded, but also to the 7.24 crore people who are on the draft rolls, some of who are now getting notices. Yes, it applies to all of them. So yes, in that sense, it's a very comprehensive order. And that's why I said it could be a historic order. I use the word historic also because to my mind, the scope of this order goes much beyond Bihar. Although the order says that it will apply in this particular case. But please notice the reasoning deployed by the court. The court does not say because of the exceptional situations of Bihar, because of the compressed timelines of Bihar, we are ordering Aadhaar. No. The court clearly says that it is in their reading of the Representation of People's Act, Section 23(4), that it is one of the documents enumerated for purposes of established identity, etc. So the court says because of the Representation of People's Act, it is ordering Aadhaar to be accepted. If that is the case, its application goes much beyond Bihar. And in that case, it could be a lifeline not only for these 8 crore people in Bihar, but could actually be a lifeline for the rest of the country, wherever SIR is applied.
So what you're saying is when the Election Commission, as it has said it will, decides to hold an SIR exercise nationwide, Aadhaar will have to be one of the documents that are used for that purpose. That has now been established by the Supreme Court.
Indeed, Karan, on the uh, 2 days from, in fact, tomorrow, on the 10th of September, the Election Commission is holding a very special meeting with all the CEOs throughout the country to determine the nature of documents that should be accepted for SIR throughout the country. As we know, the Election Commission has already given instructions throughout the country. Election Commission has already fixed 1st of January as the cutoff date for SIR in the rest of the country. So whether SIR will be implemented and when it would be implemented is not a question in doubt anymore. It is a national order. It is about to be implemented, and therefore, this judgment of the Supreme Court has come just in the nick of time, so that when the Election Commission sits down with the CEOs of the entire country, it will now have to include Aadhaar card in its consideration. And hopefully, if they decide to play straight, simply include Aadhaar card as one of the legitimate documents.
One more question, and I'm talking now specifically about the exercise in Bihar. What is your best estimate of the number of people affected, i.e., the number of people who will hereafter be retained on the electoral rolls but were earlier in danger of being deleted? In earlier interviews, you said to me it could be as many as 2 crore. Do you stand by that figure?
Yes, Election Commission has tried to fudge this issue once again by saying 99.5% have given documents. But as we discussed in the previous interview, Election Commission never clarified which documents and whether these documents were one of the 11 documents or outside that. So yes, the apprehension was that it would be more than 1 crore, 1.5 crore. As I said, about 40% of those who would have been required to give documents simply did not have these documents. The number would be smaller in other states of India, but in Bihar, it was particularly large. So potentially, this particular judgment of the Supreme Court has the effect of rescuing tens of millions of people. I wish the Election Commission were to give honest figures, which they have not so far. But that is an estimate, not based on my subjective judgment, but based on the documents given by the government of India itself.
My very last question. Now, after the Supreme Court has ordered that Aadhaar be considered the 12th document, how do you view the overall SIR exercise? When I first interviewed you almost a month and a half ago, you had serious concerns and apprehensions about it. Are they, now that Aadhaar has been authorized and Aadhaar coverage is pretty close to 100%, are those concerns largely allayed?
Karan, one operational part of it is significantly is addressed, which is the concern that a very large-scale disenfranchisement was going to happen. But other concerns still remain, and therefore the legal battle against SIR continues. Other concerns are, number one, very serious procedural irregularities. Almost all the key procedures specified in the manual on electoral rolls, which have nothing to do with Aadhaar or any other document, almost all of them are currently being violated by the Election Commission of India. We have drawn the Supreme Court's attention to it. Hopefully, in the next hearing, this will come up. And fundamentally, Karan, the point that I've been making with you again and again, it is basically unconstitutional. It is unconstitutional, irrespective of the nature of documents asked. The very idea that every citizen of India should be presumed to be foreigner unless they can give documents to prove that they are Indians. This is unconstitutional. It is not in the remit of Election Commission. And number two, the very shifting of onus from the state to the citizen. You fill a form. Unless you fill a form, you are not on the voters list. This, in the long run, is bound to have a disenfranchising effect on poor and disadvantaged. So yes, while some of the worst consequences of the exercise would be significantly contained by this particular judgment, and therefore it should be welcomed. But the unconstitutional nature of SIR and its basic design and the procedural violations still need to be attended to before SIR is taken to other states of India.
Yogendra Yadav, thank you very much for the time you've given me. Thank you very much for sharing your understanding of yesterday's order, which, as you said, is critical, even historic. Take care. Stay safe.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
A naked man has little to no influence on society. In clothes like this, you step out and you know that you're going to turn heads. You know that you're going to create an impression of a person who cares deeply about the way they look and has a finer eye for detail. And, you know, that seems to be the Bombay Shirt Company way. What I really love about these clothes, and I really mean this, is this looks like a man has walked into the room. I like that. You know, it's nice.